Hello, everybody. Welcome to Canuck News. Today is Monday, November 10th. Sorry. We have a number of articles that we're going to be covering from the weekend. So Mark Carney drops the biggest defense spending increase in generations. Still not really a big plan. Some judges are flirting with banning poppies in courtrooms. Wow. Ottawa is finally moving forward on temporary immigration. We'll see how that goes. Is it good or is it just optics? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Gen Z is quietly walking back into church, which is quite interesting. I mean, there's a lot of different philosophical reasons why that might be the case, but let's dig in deep. And apparently, there's a liberal insider that's trying to paint Pierre Poilievre's conservatives as a cult. I mean, whatever. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. First story. So this is an article I pulled in from the Globe and Mail. Is Ottawa's plans to spend big on defense, but is there a real long-term vision for defense spending for Canada's military? That's a very good question. So Mark Carney's first budget is delivering $84 billion in new defense spending, over 5 years. So obviously they can't just, boost defense spending couple tens of billions of dollars in 1 year, but it's over a 5 year period, which isn't that bad. This is the first and biggest boost since the Korean War era, which is actually a very long time. That's like over 50 years, even more. So that takes the Department of National Defense budget from roughly $34.5 billion to about $48 billion in a single year. So it's pretty significant. And is pitched as the path to finally hitting and later exceeding that NATO's 2% GDP target, which Canada obviously isn't hitting. And Canada has apparently stated that there's an ambition of reaching a 3.5% NATO GDP target by 2030. So on paper, this is the rebuild everybody has been screaming for. Raises for the troops, money for infrastructure, ammunition, cyber drones, long-range strikes, and standalone procurement agencies. The sales pitch, though, is Canada really can't rely on the U.S. anymore for protection, so we're investing at home in building a domestic defense and industrial base. I have a problem with the way Canada's actually framing this. We can't depend on the U.S. anymore. We should never have been depending on the U.S. for protecting Canada's borders. Canada has its own borders. Every sovereign nation defends its own borders, has to have a military that's going to defend its borders. That's what the military's for. And if you don't have a military that defends your own borders, then you get bullied by somebody, right? Look who we're bordering, right? In the north, we're basically bordering Russia through the Arctic, through that North Pole. Are we being bullied by Russia? Not really. Are we being bullied by the US? Yeah, we are. Why? Because our military's crap. We don't invest in it. Why? God knows why. God knows why. Obviously, the money's going somewhere else. Now, we can get into some, a couple of different things. This is a massive check. It doesn't seem to have a real defense policy aimed behind it. So there's no clear force structure. There's no airtight procurement reform. There's no binding Arctic doctrine. No funded submarine fleet plan. It just seems that they're going to be putting money into the military industrial complex, and pouring about $84 billion through those same clouded pipelines is not really a strategy. It's really a burn rate. If we're going to be talking sovereignty, then we got to match the dollars to hard capabilities, right? Arctic surveillance, subs in the water, ships at sea, jets on alert, munition stockpiles above a few days. There has to be munition stockpiles. That's something that The U.S. has proven that, in Europe as well, is that, in the collective NATO, there's a lack of stockpiles, proven by the amount of munitions that have been given to Ukraine that have basically been running out. One interesting thing, though, in the article is that Mark Carney does state that he plans on boosting Arctic protection, building bases, kind of civil and military in there, which is good. I support it if it's going to happen. If it's not going to happen, if it's just something on paper, then there's no point of doing it. Like, why mention it if you're not going to be doing it, right? So Canada's in a funny place right now, because Canada is actually spending around like 1.3 to 1.4% on military spending, and the idea of getting to 2% and to 3.5% is great. I think we need to do it for a number of reasons. Like I said, sovereignty is one of the biggest reasons. Sovereignty is literally protected through military means. You don't have to attack anybody, but you have to have a standing, capable military that's going to be too much of a headache for somebody else to pick a fight with you with, right? Canada has like 40 million people now. That's, sizable enough. Massive country, though, right? So we need to have some kind of a bolstered defense to protect our borders, to protect our waters, to protect our trade routes. In my opinion, honestly, I think the main thing Canada should be investing in: air defense systems, a good submarine fleet, and just patrolling everywhere. Now, question to you guys: should the increased defense spending be locked into a binding, published force plan without annual capability targets, or instead of just trusting whichever government happens to be in power that year? Bit of a rhetorical question, I know. Maybe to flip it around, what do you guys think about the increases in the defense spending? How do you guys see these increases in defense spending? The second story that I got for us is, Poppies in the courtroom, or should Poppies be allowed in Canadian courts? This is another Globe and Mail article. So some judges in Nova Scotia and Saskatchewan have actually told staff or counsel they cannot wear poppies while in court. And the whole argument here is that, visible symbols risk the appearance of bias and might undermine neutrality. And I think the specific question was that there was a situation in which someone inflicted some kind of harm on a war veteran, and the veteran came into the courtroom wearing a poppy, and this whole dilemma came up: should poppies be worn? I mean, honestly, I think this is just absolutely ridiculous, unnecessary neoliberal thinking, completely detached from reality. We're in the days of Remembrance Day. We're thinking about all of our fallen soldiers, everybody that's laid down their life for Canada. O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, with all our sons command. That's what the poppy represents. Everybody should be wearing the poppy at all times. This is exactly what it is. The poppy isn't like a party logo or a pressure group. It's a national act of remembrance for people who died so that these same institutions could exist. We don't know what would have happened to the world if Juno Beach didn't happen in World War II, if the Battle of the Somme didn't happen in World War I, if we haven't been laying down our lives all the time to protect freedom and democracy. That's what the poppy stands for. The courtrooms are there to judge neutrally. If a war veteran committed a crime, that war veteran deserves what the law prescribes for them. But to be condemning the wearing of a symbol of unity, of freedom, that honestly, I don't like it. It's disgusting to me. So the judges can be impartial, but if the theory of impartiality can't accommodate, a symbol of sacrifice worn for a week, in November, the problem is the theory, not the poppy, right? So what do you guys think? Do you trust a court more when it bans the poppy or when it respects the people who died defending the rule of law it claims to uphold? So the next article is the temporary immigration cuts. So what do you guys think? Is this a half measure or a course correction? I pulled this out from the CBC. Advocates concerned temporary immigration cuts don't address the root cause. So Carney's budget sharply cuts the targets for temporary foreign workers and international students over the next 3 years. So this follows his own admission that in 2018, temporary residents were about 3.3% of Canada's population, and by 2024, it was 7.5%. So that's actually, that's quite the increase. That's a 2x increase, and so obviously this explosion has been hammering housing, healthcare, transit, and campuses. Universities have padded their budgets by charging foreign students 5 times domestic tuition. Businesses using the TFW program, a temporary foreign workers program, as a crutch instead of raising wages for Canadians and training Canadians. And now, it's a convenient timing for big cuts and marketed responsibility. The thing with all of this is they're portraying this as we're going to be supporting the housing market, we're going to be doing this and that, but the fact of the matter is they've been making money on short-term gains for the last 10 years over Justin Trudeau, and this is the Liberal government. The Liberal government did this, right? Quite literally. And so now they're trying to play back. They're saying, in 2018, from 2018 to 2024, we've 2x the number of foreign students and temporary foreign workers in the country. Now it's almost 10% of the population, which is crazy. It's crazy that you have 10% of your population that's not a national living in your borders. That's insane. Take that in, guys. But then, lower on in the article, they start saying, the universities are making so much money because a domestic student pays, $7,500 a year on tuition, and a foreign student pays $40,000 in tuition. That's not my problem. First of all. Second of all, higher education institutions are there to support domestic students in being better students. Not for you to be increasing your profitability, your bottom line, and that's the only thing you care about. The point of higher education within a country is to educate the domestic population. If you're bringing in more foreign students to study within Canadian universities, that's a flawed system in and of itself. And then you bring these people in, they're paying the universities this much money. There's not enough housing. Housing prices are skyrocketing. We're getting these articles coming in where there's like 20 people living in a basement. But that's not a problem. It's not a problem that there's 14% youth unemployment in the country. 14% youth, so that's across the board. So in some places it's probably higher. Probably in bigger urban areas that's probably even higher. So this is this is a greed issue. This is, when it comes down to it, this is just greed. The people that were in power, the Trudeau government and everybody else, so it all trickles down. And mind you, the Trudeau government was caught several times in various affairs like SNC Lavalin, and nothing ever happened. And so when you see this level of corruption that exists, it doesn't, it's of no wonder that there's no national plan for higher education of the domestic populace. It absolutely does not surprise me at all. And the reason why that is because they're all corrupt. It's a national thing. They're all corrupt. Carney's a part of that group. Obviously, he's a liberal, but I mean, he's trying to do things. But the thing is, his measures are reactionary. They're not proactive measures. There's a housing bubble burst to a degree. Housing prices are down drastically, and so this is all reactionary now. Trying to help support the domestic economy, the actual citizens, by doing this and that. It's too late. All of these measures, we're going to feel the effects maybe 3 years down. He put a ban for 3 years. We're going to feel the effects of that in 3 years, and then they're going to open up the floodgates again. Where's the solution? No one's actually coming up with a solution. They're putting Band-Aids on a bullet wound. So this is a serious problem we're facing, guys. So let me ask you, should immigration and temporary resident caps be automatically linked to measurable capacity indicators, or left to political mood swings and business complaints? What do you guys think? Next article is a CTV article, and it is linked to, so it says Gen Z is driving a return to faith, Canadian church leader says. So this is actually pretty interesting. So new reporting and church data suggests a rise in Gen Z participation in Christian churches in parts of Canada, with some congregations reporting major growth among 15 to 29-year-olds, while older age groups stay flat or decline. StatCan's 2022 survey and follow-ups show that younger Canadians are more likely than many assume to attend services monthly or explore religion, even as overall religiosity has trended downward over decades. So this is actually pretty interesting. And this kind of topic has really been come into the forefront over the last couple of years, in the lethargy within specifically young male populations. And the article actually specifies that there's an noticeable uptick in young men going to church over young women. And the article actually, it's funny. So the article actually at one point cites that, here we go. So it says, Deckman, so a recent survey conducted by the Public Religion Research Institute found that the proportion of young American women aged 18 to 29 who did not consider themselves religiously affiliated grew from 29% in 2013 to 40% in 2024. In comparison, the percentage of men within the same age group increased by 1 percentage point between 2013 and 2024. So it's not a big increase, but it's an increase. Deckman says her research finds more Gen Z women identify as progressive and have expressed concerns over the treatment of LGBTQ individuals in some Christian denominations, citing that as a main reason for leaving. I think this is a citation now. I think they've just become disillusioned with not just the treatment of many LGBTQ individuals in churches, but the patriarchal vision of many conservative churches. So this is hilarious. This whole citation here is pretty funny, because Deckman says the vision of many conservative churches. There's no vision of conservative churches. Christianity is very black and white. It's the preachings of Jesus Christ. That is what Christianity is founded upon, and what Jesus Christ prophesies to his disciples, to the apostles, and how that word spread and what that word means to people. It's a way of living. It's a moral, ethical code that exists within Christianity, right? Not to get into a religious, debate here, but that is what Christianity is. You can't have a conservative church or a liberal church. It's not politically affiliated. These are the rules, essentially. This is the moral, ethical guideline that you should be following philosophically to live a healthy life. So you can't have an LGBTQS, the whole alliteration there, saying, hey, we want to be able to do this and that within churches. We're Christian, but you're not, because you're completely going against exactly, the things that Jesus Christ preached. And that's just the truth. And there's no way around it. So you can't be progressive in Christianity. It's not that way. That's just not Christianity. Like Jesus Christ literally said, okay, he said when he was preaching in Jerusalem, and he was calling out somebody. He said, you say that you don't commit adultery, but I say to you, committing adultery isn't just basically cheating on your wife. I'm paraphrasing, but he said, you shall not look at another woman, let alone sleep with another woman. Again, paraphrased, but that's what he said. So there's no place in Christianity, not only for cheating, but you're considered to be cheating on your wife, on your lifelong partner, if you look at another woman with lust. And now we're talking about the LGBT community being Christian, being in Christian denominations. That it literally doesn't make sense. Like it just doesn't make sense. So why all of this is important is because men have been disenfranchised mainly. There's been constant reporting on toxic male masculinity and all of that going on in the news and in media all the time. And it really brought rise to a whole new grouping of people. Jordan Peterson was one of the first ones, to be preaching certain things, kind of bringing up the confidence back in men, right? And then you had other, let's say, extreme ends of the spectrum, like Andrew Tate that came around that also started, get basically putting ideas in people's in young men's minds. Men in general, people in general, need to be principled morally, ethically, to sustain a healthy mental life. Okay? And that's exactly what Christianity used to do for people, right? And there's I can't find the statistic right now, but there's a statistic back in the that I saw. Actually, I saw it on Osmond Gold, to be honest. But he pulled it up. It said that the U.S. states that are conservative Christian states have, it's like a 70% less mental health issues than the liberal states. Why is that? Because that family nucleus that you get within Christianity, within living, you don't have to be Christian, but if you live within a nucleus family, you have that family support, you have that family structure behind you, you have someone to lean on, right? You have somebody to talk to always. You know that you're loved. All of these new neoliberal ideologies have just been separating people. They've been putting everybody into separate silos. And humans are we're very social beings, right? We can't live like that. Anyways, I've been ranting a little bit. But question for you guys, is this really a start of a real realignment in Canadian culture, or is this just a short-term reaction to chaos? I'm actually quite curious, to be honest. The next article is a CTV News article. It says The Conservative Party's Culture of Fear by Sharon Carr. So Sharon Carr column trying to brand Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives as a cult run by fear and blackmail. So Carr is a former senior Liberal staffer now in crisis communications. Accuses Poilievre's operation of intimidation, opportunity threats, and a culture of fear, framing recent floor crossing and resignations as proof of internal rot. And here's the problem with treating this as a neutral analysis. It just isn't. I mean, you're a Liberal staffer, and now you're gonna take a jab at the Conservatives. Really? There's a clear ideological and professional interests. The whole article is just I said this, I heard this once upon a time. The whole article is full of things like that. And so are there hard-nosed tactics in federal politics? 100%. The whole idea is to discredit the other party always. So every major party, Trudeau's prime minister of office did the same thing, internal liberal discipline. The NDP purged the dissenters. It's nothing new. But the bigger question is, how do you move from being conservative to liberal? The two parties, in essence, like the naming conventions of the two parties are complete opposites. They're complete opposites. Being conservative, politically, philosophically, economically, is completely different than being liberal. They're literally two ends of the spectrum. So there's no way for someone who is truly conservative to just say, "Hey, I wanna join, the Liberal Party because they're more aligned with what I believe." Buddy, you're never conservative then. What's actually happening is these people want a seat at the table because they're tired of being in opposition. They want to be in power. This is like a typical Balkan, political, switcheroo. This is what they do all the time. They just flock to the governing party. This is all that's happening. They're just running character assassinations. Now, I'm not happy with Pierre Poilievre myself. I think that, he had an election that was basically handed to him on a silver platter and he failed epically. That's a whole different story. But, saying that this guy's basically a party dictator is just hilarious. It's hilarious when you have Justin Trudeau, who was in government, for over 10 years. He was in government for over 10 years. Come on. And Mark Carney is now trying to win a majority government. He's trying to find dissidents. He's trying to find dissidents so that he can win a majority government to push whatever policy he wants to push. That's That is more dictatorial behavior, if anything. Not calling him a dictator. I'm just saying that's what they do. What, it's just that whole classic. Why would you hang out with that guy? He's a loser. Come hang out with me. I'm ruling. We just ruled for the last 10 years. Come on. Let's steal some money together. Let's steal some more cannabis tax revenues together, and not do any publicly funded works. That's what's going on. And the guys that moved from Nova Scotia, that's a small province, not one of the wealthiest provinces. Why would you want to be an opposition leader? Anyways, when you guys see this kind of op-ed, do you treat it as evidence, or do you guys kind of treat this as a campaign to make sure certain people never get close to power? If you guys are still with me, you're the kind of Canadian this country actually depends on, paying attention when they'd rather you tune out. See you guys tomorrow. I'm Miloš Krajčnik. Stay curious, stay informed, and God bless Canada.